Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're actually diving into something that's literally all around us, yet completely invisible. We're talking about those pulsing, silent networks that power everything from your smart thermostat at home to massive industrial factory floors. Yep, it's the Internet of Things, or IoT. And specifically, we're going to look at how we actually build the communication stack that makes the whole shebang possible. It's a really fascinating journey, taking us all the way from tiny, battery-powered sensors up to massive global networks. Now, to really wrap our heads around the sheer scope of IoT, we have to look at the business stakes involved. Think about consumer IoT for a second, like a smartwatch. If it suddenly drops its connection, what happens? You might lose a few minutes of fitness tracking. It's a bummer, but pretty minor stakes, right? But then contrast that with industrial IoT. In that world, equipment has to run continuously, often for years, in absolutely brutal conditions. If even a single sensor drops its connection on a manufacturing line, you're looking at halted production, skyrocketing maintenance costs, or even compromised worker safety. The stakes there are just astronomically high. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a layer-by-layer roadmap for constructing this entire ecosystem from the ground up. We'll start with the world of IoT, build the network architecture, set up the rules of transport, look at some lightweight IoT languages, and finally, explore the 5G revolution. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the world of IoT. Before we get into how the data actually travels, we really need to understand the landscape of the devices themselves. By definition, the Internet of Things describes physical objects embedded with sensors, processing power, and software that connect and exchange data. But here's kind of the wild part. The name itself is actually a bit of a misnomer. Believe it or not, most of these devices don't even need to be connected to the public internet at all. They really just need to be on a localized network to communicate with a central hub. Because they're hanging out on these local networks, these devices usually rely on short-range, low-power protocols. You've probably heard of Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE. That's your go-to for short-range, low-cost comms. Then there's Zigbee, which is absolutely awesome for low-power mesh networking at about 250 kilobits per second. If you need more bandwidth locally, standard Wi-Fi works great. And for devices spread out over literal miles, think like smart agriculture in massive fields, we use LoRaWAN. That gives you incredible long-range communication at very low data rates, just to keep those batteries running for years. So that brings us to Section 2, building the network architecture. How do these localized, short-range devices actually get their data out into the broader world? And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that data moves. It's like a giant puzzle. At the very bottom layer, you've got your physical devices, the sensors. From there, the data makes its way hop by hop up through the network communication layer, and eventually lands all the way at the top in the IoT service and application layer. That top layer is where us humans actually interact with it. It's a highly structured, perfectly tiered system. But to make that massive jump from a tiny local sensor all the way up to the cloud application, we need a bridge, and that bridge is the gateway. Gateways are basically the vital middlemen of the whole IoT universe. They sit right there at the edge of the network, gathering up all that localized chatter, like those Bluetooth or Zigbee signals we just talked about. They translate all those different protocols into something standardized, and then push that processed data out to the broader internet. Okay, so now that our architecture is mapped out and the gateway's in place, we're on to Section 3, the rules of transport. We have to figure out exactly how this data gets packaged and shipped across the network. When it comes to network transport, we're mostly dealing with two main rulebooks, TCP and UDP. The best way to think about this is like the post office. TCP is your certified mail. It is super reliable, it strictly requires a signature, and if a package gets lost, it resends it. But because of all that checking, it's pretty heavy, carrying a minimum of 20 bytes of overhead per packet. UDP, on the flip side, is just standard mail. You drop your letter in the blue box and just kind of hope it gets there. There are absolutely no guarantees, but man, it is fast. Plus, it's incredibly lightweight. We're talking just 8 bytes of overhead. But this creates a massive dilemma for us. See, standard web protocols love TCP because our laptops and servers demand that reliability. But if you take a tiny battery-constrained IoT sensor and force it to use a heavy 20-byte TCP connection, it's going to drain its battery in no time, just trying to say hello. UDP totally solves the energy problem, sure, but then we lose the reliability that, say, a critical industrial manufacturing plant absolutely requires. Which leads us straight into Section 4, lightweight IoT languages. We've got to find a way to solve this transport dilemma up at the application layer. So, You might be wondering, how exactly do these tiny battery-powered sensors, which, by the way, might need to sit out in the middle of a massive farm field for 5 years, how do they talk to the web reliably without just completely dying? Well, the secret sauce is specialized communication languages engineered strictly for the Internet of Things. Now, what's really interesting about this model is how a protocol called MQTT tackles the problem using a central broker. Instead of keeping a heavy, constant connection open, these lightweight sensors simply wake up for a split second, publish their tiny packet of data to the central broker, and immediately go right back to sleep. The broker acts like a highly reliable middleman. It holds that data in a queue and pushes it out to any applications that have subscribed to that specific topic. It is an incredibly efficient and robust system. But here's the catch. MQTT still relies on that heavier TCP transport underneath. So engineers came up with another solution, CoAP. CoAP is brilliant because it brings standard web-like RESTful requests, the HTTP GET and PUT commands that run the normal internet, straight into the IoT world. But crucially, CoAP runs over the lighter UDP transport. It essentially builds a lightweight reliability mechanism on top of UDP, which saves precious energy while still letting the device act like a standard web client. It really is the best of both worlds. All right, moving into our final layer for this explainer, Section 5, the 5G revolution. We've built the local network, we've routed the data, we've even established the languages. Now let's look at the macro-level connectivity that is supercharging this entire ecosystem. 5G is just completely transforming the IoT landscape. Sure, it offers massive data transfer speeds, which is great for high-volume sensors, but the real game changer is the millisecond latency. Think about a wearable health monitor that detects a sudden drop in a patient's blood oxygen. With 5G, that critical data is sent and can be acted upon by doctors almost instantaneously, in real time. Plus, 5G networks can handle an absolutely unprecedented density of devices in one area without dropping connections. So the crucial point is this: 5G doesn't just make things faster, it fundamentally rewrites the rules for device power management. Because the data transmission is so incredibly fast, these devices spend way less time in an active transmitting state. They just wake up, blast their data in a fraction of a second, and go right back to sleep. This drastically prolongs battery life and cuts down on maintenance costs across those massive 1,000-sensor industrial networks. We've seen just how incredible this entire stack is, right? From those tiny local BLE sensors all the way up to global 5G networks. But I want to leave you with one final kind of provocative thought. As we start deploying literally billions of new 5G connected devices, every single one of those nodes becomes a potential entry point for hackers. The ultimate challenge for this massive stack isn't just about connectivity anymore. It's about security. How in the world do we protect a practically infinitely expanding attack surface? It's a huge question, and I definitely encourage you to keep exploring the fascinating world of IoT security. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.